Welcome into a brand new episode of the Whole Story Podcast. Joining me today, very special guest of the show, Michael Massey, second baseman of the Kansas City Royals. Michael, always great to talk with you. How's everything going?
I'm good, Alex. I'm good. I appreciate you having me on. I always enjoy being able to talk with you and get on the show.
Now, this is the first time we've officially talked on the podcast since you made your major league debut. I got to ask the first question. What was that like? What was that experience like for you to finally make it to the big leagues?
It was unbelievable. It's one of those things I think pretty much everybody that puts on a baseball uniform dreams of, and it's something that it's a feeling you honestly can't describe because there's just so many things that go into it as far as work and sacrifice, not only from you but from the people around you. So just getting to the coolest part, I think, was just getting to see everyone's reaction. That's kind of been with me through the entire journey. Was probably the coolest part for me.
At what point did you think that you could say, okay, I'm here now. I got to where I need to be. Now I have to improve at that level.
I would say probably toward the end of the year. It took me a minute, I feel like, to kind of get there. Obviously, I was called up in Toronto, so that was kind of a flash in the pan thing with the COVID stuff, and we knew we were going down, so it didn't really sink in there. And then I got called back up when we were in Chicago, which is near my hometown. So that was kind of a crazy event as well. And then obviously going to the different stadiums for the first time, seeing Fenway Park. There's just knocking off a lot of firsts in the big leagues, and I really felt like probably somewhere in September. I don't know that I can put my finger on it, but I felt like somewhere in September was really where I was like, okay, this is baseball. I'm back to it now, and the circus is kind of over, and I'm used to it. I'm used to playing these stadiums, and it really became about, all right, let's go out and improve, and let's win some games. So, yeah, I think that honeymoon phase kind of wore off at some point, probably in the middle of September.
How much did your relationships, obviously, it's a young core there in Kansas City, and you've been able to play at whether it be spring training or in the minor leagues with a lot of the players at the big league level now. What was that like for you to play around guys that you've already known and played around?
Yeah, it was cool. It was the funny thing is I wasn't in major league camp this past spring training, so I was still in minor league camp, and um, but like you said, the value of I was able to back up like 6 or 7 games during spring training, and just being in the dugout and being around those guys really, I think, made the transition a lot easier when you walk into a clubhouse and people have seen you before, you've seen them before, they know your name, you know their name. Um, I think it really, really helped that transition for me. To be honest with you, Alex, I was more nervous. We played in spring training. We played in Scottsdale, um, and I made my spring training major league debut, and I was significantly more nervous for that than I was when I got called up to the big leagues in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I just remember sitting in the dugout in Scottsdale, like freaking out. And then when we were in Toronto, it was like, all right, here we go. Like, I don't know if it's because it was the middle of the season and we were just into it. I can't tell you why, but I definitely felt more nervous in spring training.
So when you felt that nervous energy, what did you do? Did you do anything to try to get out of that?
Um, not really. I think some of the biggest thing is just go out and do it. Like I think I always tell myself, part of the process is just going out and doing it. Everybody was once a rookie. Everybody has gone through first time experiences, and I think that people will relate to. They can be uncomfortable. You
Mhm.
know, um, I'm sure your first podcast that you did, the first time you call a
Yeah.
game, there's just those natural nerves that you have, and I think the worst thing you can do is try to fight it, and the worst thing you can do is try to give it a bunch of time and try to sort through it. I think the best thing is just acknowledge it and be like, hey, you know what? Checks out. It's my first time. Actually, I work with a mental performance coach, and one of the things we talk about a lot is does the situation match your feelings? So if it's your first game in a big league uniform and you're playing in front of 30,000 people and you got some jitters, That probably checks out if you're a little bit nervous. It makes sense. So it's not really too much to worry about. If it's June 28th and it's game 72 and there's 20,000 people in the stands and you're really nervous and you're shaking, well, you might have to go dive in and do some work and try to figure out why that is. So I really just kind of trusted that advice and understood, okay, this is the first time that I'm playing around big leaguers really, and that I'm getting an opportunity here. So just acknowledged it and said, all right, let's go do it.
You were one of the rarity players this past year. You played at the AA level, then AAA, and the major leagues all in one season. What was that like?
Crazy as far as living arrangements and being in three different clubhouses and traveling everywhere. It was cool. It was cool. What was really cool was being able to see. I feel like I got a really really good view on what the different levels are and the different challenges that they bring and really as a hitter seeing the difference in pitching at each levels and kind of there seems to be a different way that guys go about it at each level. I felt like Double A was just guys had unbelievable stuff, and it felt like every single at bat they were trying to wipe you out. Whether it was 0-2, 0-0, 2-0, every single pitch was I'm going to try to throw you a back foot slider and get you to swing and miss at it. Um, and then AAA, I felt like the stuff maybe wasn't as sharp, but their ability to sequence it and maybe take lesser stuff but sequence it in the right order was really something that stood out to me. And then I felt like the big leagues was kind of both of them together. It was really really good stuff with guys who kind of had a really good idea of how to sequence it, and I felt like that was cool to be able to fight those challenges and to make those adjustments at each level, and just kind of figure out it's fun going to a new level, and it's almost like a video game. You feel like you kind of master one level and then you go to the next one and there's new challenges there and you got to figure them out, and so it was a constant challenge for me, which was something I enjoyed.
Ever since the minor league contraction, people sometimes said AA is tougher than AAA now, and AA is a new AAA, and AAA is a different view, and then the major leagues is the most difficult level it's Major League Baseball has ever been. Do you agree with that at all?
I certainly see where people would say that. I think if you just go and watch a game, I think Double A lights up the radar gun a little bit more than Triple A. Um, the way that I would look at it is I wouldn't say one is easier than the other. I think they're just different. I think would be the way I would put it. They're just it's kind of two different levels as far as brings two different challenges. Like I said, one of them is you're going to deal with elite stuff on a nightly basis, and I felt like every single night in Double A, um, you're seeing triple digits. I felt like pretty much every night from somebody. Whether it was the starter, whether it was a closer, a guy coming in. And to be honest with you, in the 6 weeks I was in Triple A, I don't. Maybe we saw 4 or 5 guys that hit triple digits, but again, you're dealing now with in Double A, you're not dealing with guys that have been in the big leagues for 10 years coming back down. So that's a whole different animal right there. As far as okay, this guy's got 10 years of big league experience. He can read my swing. Uh, he has full control of all of his off speed stuff. He knows exactly how to set me up and how to sequence me. Like so, there's that was a challenge as well. So again, like I said, I wouldn't say one was harder. It was different.
What did you learn most about yourself as a baseball player this year? If there's one thing that you can kind of highlight.
Um, I think that I wouldn't say necessarily as a baseball player, but I think as a person, you're able to handle more than you think. I think sometimes we sell ourselves short as what we think we're capable of. And one of the ideas that I've been throwing around with the performance coach that I talked to, and we've been talking a lot about expectations. And one thing I learned is that the my whole life I've always set these expectations, and I think it's interesting because I'm starting to notice that it's not necessarily a great thing to set expectations because I either one I set an expectation and I press and I play tight because I'm trying to reach an expectation and I fall short. Or on the flip side of that, I set an expectation and then I without even realizing it, I limit myself and I limit what I'm capable of because I already have this set thing in my head, even though I might have been capable of more. And so I think this year, what it really taught me was if you just go out and you kind of work on your process every day and you show up to the park and you keep the expectations and the results away from what you do on a daily basis, um, who knows where it can go, man? I mean, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, after not being a major league camp, that I was going to spend 2 months at Double A, get called up to Triple A, and then 6 weeks later be in the big leagues, I probably would have told you you're crazy. And so, um, if I would have set an expectation of where I thought I was going to be, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. And so, just again, that idea of work hard every day, come up with a process that you think is gonna breed success for you, and then the results are what they are. And the only thing you don't become attached to the results. You just use those results to maybe tweak your process if you need to. So if you're not getting the desired result, you take that and you say, okay, well, what in my process? Where's the link in the armor here that I need to go back and shore up? And that's kind of what I learned this year. I felt like through the three levels.
How do expectations and goals differentiate from themselves when you're playing baseball?
It's a fine line. It really is. I think it's something that I'm still kind of maneuvering through and navigating with. Because again, it's a totally new concept for me. It was something that I just kind of implemented and started thinking about this year. Um, and I think I shouldn't say that I'm eliminating expectations or goals. I'm eliminating the result idea of it. Um, and I'm making my expectation or my goal instead of my expectation or goal saying, man, I'm going to hit 300 this year, or we're going to win 100 games, or we're going to go to a World Series. I'm more so thinking about, okay, how do I get to, my goal should be focusing on the stuff that's going to get me to those things, not the end result in general. So I expect when I show up to the field every day, not to get 3 hits or not to win the game. I expect to go through the process of doing that. So those are the goals that I expect of myself. So maybe my goal is like, hey man, every day I'm going to bring a checkbox. And did I go through the stuff pregame that I needed to go through? Did I watch film on the pitcher? Did I get my mobility routine in? How did I eat? How did I sleep? Um, what did I do to prepare before the game? Did I warm up properly? Um, did I focus on what I needed to focus on in the cage? And those are things to me that's an expectation I have, is to go through that stuff. And if I do that, the result is what it is, because at the end of the day, I have this thing where I'll stare at my locker for a second before I go out and play, knowing that I'm going to have this same view in 3 or 4 hours after the game. And one of my things is I look at it and I'll say, all right, when I have this same view 3 hours from now or 4 hours from now, am I going to be able, no matter how the game goes, to look in the same spot and be like, you know what? What more was I going to do? What more was I going to do before the game? So the result ended up being whatever it was. But if I went through everything in my process that I thought was going to help me have success that day, was I going to, grip the bat tighter? Was I going to grip my teeth harder? Like, it's just, there's nothing else you can do. And I think that's where I think that freedom of being a player, when you find that freedom and that flow when you're playing or doing anything, I think it partly comes from you've accepted the result because you've done everything you can.
How much have you learned when you're playing baseball every single day? How can you make every day feel a little different? You're going through the same routine. It's a baseball game almost every single day. So how can you make every day feel a little bit different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the game does a good job of that for you, because the game doesn't let you do the same thing for too long. You start having success, and other guys figure it out. And that was something I noticed in the big leagues a lot. Was as soon as you start having success, man, they're studying you and they're finding your holes, and so they're going to start attacking you a completely different way. And you're going to have to change what you do. You're going to have to not the core of what you do, but you're going to have to find those little adjustments, and whether it's studying a pitcher or making a mechanical tweak or or whatever it is, you're going to have to come to the field and try to figure that out every day. So the game keeps you pretty honest, I think, in that regard.
How much are you looking forward to spring training? Because, like you said earlier, we're at big league camp this past spring. So, how much are you looking forward to a normal year at the major league level?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for for spring training and to head out there and try to win a spot. I think one thing I've realized is just because you play in the big leagues one year doesn't mean it's guaranteed the next year.
Right.
You're at this point in my career, you're competing against the best 700 and what is it, 780 players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime you kind of get down to that part of it, it's a competition every single year, and there's constantly people nipping at you. And so I'm just excited to get out there and get to work. And felt like I learned some things last year, some really valuable things that um, have helped me this off season, kind of tweak some things. And spring training is always a great time to kind of put those tweaks to a test, and you even can make some further adjustments when you get into a game situation. And just excited as well to see the guys. And obviously we see each other a lot during the season, and then in the off season we all kind of go our separate ways and stay in touch as best we can. But there's nothing like being around your teammates and coaches every single day. So just looking forward to getting back in that environment.
Now, obviously, you've been active this offseason in baseball and getting better in that way, but also active off the field, giving back to communities where you are and in Kansas City. What is that like? Because now, obviously, you can make an impact immediately within the community.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my favorite parts about I guess having the title of being a big leaguer. I remember growing up and there seems to be, whether it's right or wrong, there seems to be a spotlight on major league players, and people just look at you differently, kids, adults even. It's something that I think a player has to respect and understand what kind of role you're in when you carry the title of being a major league player. And one of the things I think about is I think it's good for every, not only every player, but every person to think about what's their purpose, what's their driving force behind what they do. And, one of the things that I've found about my own career and my own story is just this idea of being vulnerable to younger kids, to people in the community. And, I think sometimes people think there's this aura out there that people were born with it. People who are professional athletes or who are super successful just had this thing they were born with, and the journey went pretty easy, and they're there. And a kid in the community or somebody in the community could never do that because they just weren't born with it. And I think the main thing I'm trying to do is just tell my story of, hey, this wasn't always easy, and it's still not easy. And there's a lot of struggles that come along with this, and you don't have to be somebody special, uh, physically, mentally, whatever. You don't have to come from a certain place to be able to achieve a dream that you have. And so I've enjoyed just going out there and kind of talking to kids and communities and just sharing my story of the injuries I've been through, some of the mental struggles I've been through, and I think really just humanizing the idea of being a professional athlete. And it's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice. But um, if you're willing to commit to those things, I think anything is possible.
What's your message to those kids when you hear the stories of them wanting to play college baseball or make it, and be drafted? What's your message to them to never give up?
Yeah, I've had that actually a lot. I've had a lot of kids come up and say, if you could tell me one thing, which is kind of a tough question because, like, obviously there's a lot of things that go into it. But,
Or
I think one of the things that I like to tell them is, what, if you have any self-doubt or you think you can't do it or you have some fear of doing it, or your dream scares you, that it's completely normal. And that's kind of the part I was talking about being vulnerable as an athlete. I think sometimes there's an ego or pride that I completely understand that athletes don't want to let out there, that they never had doubt or that they always thought they can do it and they always believed in themselves. And maybe there's guys out there who are like that and who have had that journey the whole time. But I can tell you from my journey that that hasn't always been the case. There's been times where I really, really struggled, and I really did not think that I could make it or play at the level I'm playing at now. And um, I think for kids to be able to hear that and understand, like, okay, when I am in that situation, if I am in that situation, um, you're not alone in that. There's guys out that play in the big leagues that I've seen that have that same, those same battles. And um, I think growing up at times there's like this aura of toughness that tough people never have any doubt or they never fear anything. And I disagree completely. I think the idea of a tough person in my mind is somebody who does feel those things, but still finds a way to navigate through that and you face those challenges head on. And so I think that's probably my best piece of advice, when talking to kids or
Obviously,
adults.
yeah. Obviously, you said that there's been times where you thought maybe your baseball career would be over. You've dealt with certain things. When you thought that, where do you think your next step would have been? Like if your baseball timeline was complete, was there something that you could pivot to that you might have another passion for?
Not that I can think of. I kind of, I certainly have other skill sets. But I'd be lying to you if I said I really looked into those and went down those avenues very far. I didn't. And I'm not sure what I would have done. Obviously something, but I think the thing that I've realized when I got to the big leagues and I kind of looked back on the journey, um, I became extremely grateful for the people in my life, and um, not that I wasn't before, but even more grateful for my family, my girlfriend, coaches, teammates, the schools I went to, the travel organizations and sports teams that I played for, my community, because I think what I realized was how fragile you are during the journey, and you don't realize it when you're going through it. You don't realize how quickly something can be taken away. You don't realize, um, just the odds that you're up against, and to have people constantly pushing you and pointing you in the right direction is something you don't realize in the moment. But all the things I think about that the programs that my parents put me in as a kid, the way they raised me, the sports they put me in, the people they put me around, the discipline and the work ethic that my coaches taught me, um, just just things like that you grow thankful for because you're like, man, if what if I would have went this direction? What if I didn't have parents who pushed me to play for this team or play for this coach or go here or go there? It could have been a lot different. And one of the things I always think about is just the blessing of it all too. It's just I could have done this thing 100 more times, and this could have been my only time in the big leagues. That's I think as a player, understanding that and realizing, like I said, how fragile the journey is just something that has made me a lot, really grateful for the people around me.
In your playing career, you played in the Cape Cod Baseball League. What was that like?
That was really cool. That was one of the coolest things of my career. I think I grew up watching the movie Summer Catch with my dad, and it was something that from a young age I knew about the Cape Cod League. Especially as a aspiring baseball player, I think a lot of kids know about that, and it's always had that prestigious title of being the best college league. And uh, it was so cool to. I love that part of the country too. My girlfriend went to Boston College, so um, I always loved being in Boston area, being around Fenway. Um, Obviously the Cape only being an hour and a half from Boston. There's a special feeling to that league, and um, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that, and it was some of the best some of the best baseball that I've been around. So uh, certainly felt like it prepared me for. I went as a sophomore, so certainly prepared me. I felt like for my junior year of college and my draft year to kind of get a first look at, hey, we're going to play in front of a bunch of scouts, and the spotlight's going to kind of be on you. So I felt like it was really valuable in that sense, and then as well just meeting some great people out there and meeting some great teammates as well.
Now you mentioned your teammates. Did you play with anyone or against anyone the summer that you were there that's in the big leagues now?
Yeah, man, I'd have to go back and think. I know for sure Reed Detmers was on my team. So Reed's a pitcher for the Angels. Um, man, I'm sure there's some guys knocking on the door. There's a kid named Jeff Criswell who pitched at Michigan, who actually just got traded to Colorado, but I think he's up in AAA. Uh, Played against Torkelson,
Mm.
played against Andrew Vaughn out there. Um, Ryan Kreidler, who just got called up for Detroit. Um, man, I can. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. I don't know. I'm probably missing a ton, but
Yeah.
hopefully nobody off my own team that's going to take it personally. But yeah, no, I mean that league is. I can't. I mean, I had a scout tell me when we were out there. He's like, this is where we draft from. You know, when you look at the top 10 rounds, we pick from the Cape Cod League, and so I just every day you're going out there and you're playing against future draft picks and guys that are for sure going to play in pro ball and like you said, possibly in the big leagues.
Now, Michael, this is my favorite part of any interview I do. As you know, this is a fast five quick round. It's five quick questions, and you have as much time to answer them. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite ballpark you played in this year, excluding Kauffman and Fenway?
Oh, that's I knew you were going to say that. Toronto.
Mm.
Toronto was one of the coolest parks I played in. Just like the roof opening and the Nito building right above you. And obviously I'm probably a little biased with my debut, but ballpark was cool. Loved the city.
And I don't know if you know this, but they are doing a lot of upgrades to that ballpark this offseason. They're putting like all new seats in. Yeah, they're doing a lot of major updates with
Wow. Yeah, that place was sweet. So I can't wait to see it with the updates.
the second one. Obviously, this is a busy time of the offseason. It's the hot stove season. Aaron Judge signed with the Yankees, not official yet. When things are going around this offseason, do you as a player stay up to date or do you kind of just let everything sizzle on the back burner?
Yeah, I put it on the back burner. I usually stay away from it. I had somebody tell me this, and I thought it was the greatest analogy that I've heard as far as how people feel about baseball or whatever their sport or their job. After a while, it's like he asked me what my favorite food was, and I said my favorite food was pizza, and he goes, "Well, if you have pizza for 200 days in a row, are you going to want pizza on the 201st day?" And I said, probably not. And so that's kind of how I equate it to baseball. We play baseball so much, and we're always around the park, and for 8 months of the year, it is literally our lives, and so. Feel like I not only owe it to myself, but also my family and the people around me to in those 4 months that I'm off, I try to stay away from baseball talk the best I can.
Obviously, you don't shy away from talking the NFL.
No.
One of your good friends, Vinny Pasquantino, also a big Jets fan. So, how much time do you spend in the offseason talking football? And what's your best hot take so far of the NFL?
Um, I think I football is right after baseball is for sure my favorite sport. I love again it's kind of that getaway for me. I love the fall season and the winter season watching football and huge Bears fan obviously. Love to keep Vinny in check on his Jets. I think the hottest take for me is that the Bears have found their quarterback in Justin Fields, and I think that they're going to make a worst to first jump next year. They have 100 plus million in cap space. They have all of their draft picks. We finally have a first round pick again this year. We have our quarterback, great running back. Go out and maybe get some offensive line help, get a receiver. I like the way we're looking in Chicago, Alex. Worst to first. You heard it here first, literally.
All right, we'll see. I'll keep you in check on that one for sure. A fourth one, kind of going with a ballpark theme, but what was the nicest hotel you stayed in this past season?
Toronto. I think that played a part in it. It was the Four Seasons, and I mean, you literally walked down. It was funny because coming from the minor leagues, obviously AAA was nicer. Like the hotel started to really pick up in Double A and AAA, but uh, I mean, I always tell people like you're in the show when you're in Toronto because we walked down and like I walked out of the lobby. First of all, the lobby's like a marble floor, so you know immediately, and then you walk out and there's just a strip of stores and it's like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and so you're like, Balenciaga, like it's just everything that you've ever heard of being like a high quality, high name brand is literally just has a store right on the street outside the hotel. So uh, it was a little bit different, believe it or not, than maybe like St. Paul or Omaha, but if you can imagine that. But no, I think Toronto for sure.
Now, when you guys were there, I know some of the players ran into Adam Sandler. Did you have a chance to meet this movie star?
No, I did not, but I would have loved to. I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. Love all of his movies. So unfortunately, my girlfriend's not as she does not like Adam Sandler, so she always gives me crap about that. But uh, she thinks his humor is it's not high level enough apparently, but I enjoy it.
Then the last one for the Fast Five. What is your favorite all-time movie that you could recite the most lines to?
For sure, the other guys with that's something that I feel like throughout the year we're always quoting in the clubhouse or doing stuff, and I feel like it's like one of those things where if someone says something from the movie, I can immediately go to that scene and think of all the lines that go on. So, uh, that's one of my favorite movies to watch.
Before we wrap up and before I ask you one last question, we do want to know Pedro Grifol, former bench coach of the Royals, now manager of the White Sox. How much fun was it like playing with for Pedro this past season?
It was awesome. The thing that I'll say about Pedro is he has I should say one of the many great qualities that he has is he's a calming influence to be around. Just like especially as a young guy, that was something that immediately drew me to him was, everything's going 100 miles an hour when you get called up and everything's new and you're just trying to get comfortable. And to have somebody like Pedro, whether it be in the clubhouse, in the dugout, who's just constantly talking to you, is in your ear, giving you advice, was really, really good about, giving you credit when you did well. And then when you were struggling, he phrased it in a way where it was all about, development. And hey, man, this is, you know what? Yeah, you're struggling right now, but in a couple of years, man, we're going to be in a World Series, and this is you're going to remember these moments and what you learned from them. And so he always seemed to have a great perspective. And obviously, I'm sad to see him go because I only got to be around him for 2.5 months, and I felt like there was a lot more that he had that a lot of us young guys could have learned from. So, the White Sox are extremely lucky to have Pedro and Tos and,
Yeah.
Eddie Rodriguez went over there. So that's going to be a really good staff. And I'm hopefully looking forward to competing against them for a long time.
And the last question I have for you is one I always like to end on. If a 15-year-old kid walked up to Michael Massey right now and said, Michael, baseball is boring to me. I'm never going to watch it. What are you saying to that 15-year-old kid?
I think give it a chance. I think, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of great things that happen on a baseball field. There's a lot of life lessons that you learn, and like, it's not always fun to watch. I get it, but I think when you really dive in and one thing I've noticed talking to people is when you actually explain the thought process behind what goes into it. I think people really actually become engaged with it because I think that the big thing, obviously with the pitch clock and everything that's coming in is people just don't like the length of the game and how quote unquote boring it is. But I think when you begin to understand what actually happens in between those plays and in between those pitches, and you gain a better understanding of that, I think you have a greater respect for the game. At least I did. Each level I go up, I feel like I learned something new, and you think you got it figured out as far as the studying part of it, and then you talk to a guy that's been there for a long time, and you really just realize you're just scratching the surface, and there's so much more that goes into it, and uh, I think just learning more about that. So if I had about a month to spend with this 15-year-old, I could maybe fill him in on about half of it. But that conversation might take a minute.
Well, Michael, I want to say thanks so much for taking the time this morning to come on the podcast. Always great to catch up with you. You're one of the best, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Alex. Always enjoy talking to you and being on.